Well, hello, everyone. My name is Tyler Ramsby. I'm going to do my best to keep my eye on the time, and I need to grab my notes. Be a good thing to have with me. I don't know where to place them. I'll just set them like to the side here. Give me a sec. Jeez. Good enough. Yeah, that'll be good. But my name is Tyler Ramsby. Before we dive in, real quick introduction for those of you who don't know me. More important than all this silly career stuff, I have an amazing wife. Some of you may have met her yesterday. She came on the speaker cruise and went out to eat. I was trying to convince her to come here today, but she wouldn't come. She wanted to go explore South Carolina and not just listen to me talk like she does other times. But I also have two amazing kids as well. My daughter is just about to turn 9, and my son just turned 6. So you can thank them for me being here. This is the first time they've gone to school without me dropping them off. I'm like more nervous about that than speaking, but they'll do fine. My in-laws are watching. It'll be a good time. But I am also the founder of 2 companies now. One is Hack Smarter. We have hands-on courses and labs that you can actually afford in the field of ethical hacking. So if you want to learn more about that, go to hacksmarter.org. You should have already done that to join the Discord. If you didn't do that, you're already behind. So join the Discord and check out the lab platform. You can kind of think like try hack me, hack the box, but better, in my opinion. And then we also have Kairos. This is actually a boutique pen testing firm. If you don't know what that means, it just means we focus on really high quality pen testing. I'm partnering on this with Jerry. He is the director of strategy, and I am the founder / hacker / business / everything that I need to do to get a business off the ground running. And I guess spokesperson now that I'm speaking at a conference about Kairos and all that good stuff. But my talk today is not going to be technical. So if you were a little bit intimidated by the whole pen testing stuff, don't be. What I'm going to talk about is not arguably, it is significantly more important than learning how to hack a machine and hack the box or try hack me or earning the latest certification. So my talk is titled, Embrace Your Limits Seriously. Now in our field, we hear a lot about pushing past your limits, but I want to talk about embracing your limits. And I want to begin with a few questions. If you succeed in your career, but you find refuge in a bottle of alcohol nearly every single night, is that success? If you succeed in your career, let's say you get all the certifications, you have the OSCP, the PMPT, the PT1, the CPTS, a bunch of acronyms that I'm forgetting. If you get all the certifications, but you have no relationship with your kids because you spent all your time studying, is that success? Or if you become well-known in the industry, you're invited to speak at conferences, maybe you keynote DEF CON on the main stage, incredibly successful, but your marriage falls apart because you spent all of your time working and trying to chase this allure of success. Is that really success? I would argue that it isn't. I want to propose to you today that real success is found in embracing your limits, not trying to push past them. And I want to begin in a very strange place. By a show of hands, how many of you know what this is? No one. That's kind of what I assumed. So I have a very weird background, right? I have a master's degree in like theology, which is religion. It's craziness. You don't need to learn about it. But I am going to educate you a little bit. This is the ancient city of Carthage. Anyone ever heard of Carthage before? Did you know it? Did you know it was Carthage? Nice. Yes, it did. It did. But this is the ancient city of Carthage on the coast of North Africa. And I want to bring you in a time machine back to about the 8th century BC. I'm sure you know a whole lot about the 8th century BC and living in Carthage. But imagine for a moment, all of us together in 8th century BC in the ancient city of Carthage. Now, imagine again that there is an economic disaster. Maybe it was a famine that led to an economic crisis in our community. Well, if you were a citizen of Carthage in the 8th century, you knew the solution. People in the ancient world were very religious. They worshipped a bunch of different gods. And in 8th century Carthage, kind of like the Zeus for them, the god of all gods, name was Baal Hammon. Now, if your city is going through an economic disaster, you would know as an 8th century person from Carthage that the answer is to offer a sacrifice. So you would have traveled to an ancient place called a Tophet. I'm sure a lot of you have heard about this as well, but a Tophet was a walled enclosure, a sacred area dedicated to the gods. And you would have made this trip to the Tophet with your family, especially if you had young children, in order to offer a sacrifice to appease the gods and have economic stability. But this is where it gets really dark. If you know the history of Carthage and what a Tophet is, you would travel here with your young kids and you would offer a child as a sacrifice. I won't go into the gruesome detail of what that actually looked like, but it was usually a baby or a toddler. They would be killed by their own family. Their body would be burned. And as the smoke wafts up to the heavens, that would be an offer of sacrifice to the gods. And it was believed that if you offered enough sacrifices, then you could secure economic stability for yourself. So if you wanted economic success, or if you wanted to overcome the famine in your community, the goal was sacrifice what matters the most to you, that you might ensure that your family is economically stable. Now you might be thinking, this is the strangest tech talk I have ever attended in my entire life. I'm in 8th century Carthage talking about child sacrifice. This dude is weird. That's why I don't watch him on YouTube. What I want you to recognize is, in many ways, this is actually a parable of how many of us have approached our careers in cybersecurity. Now, hopefully you haven't physically killed someone you love, but we have this altar of success, or this altar of financial security, or this altar of we want that certification, or we want to become a pen tester, or we want to open a business, whatever it is. And we have a tendency to sacrifice the things that matter the most in our pursuit of success. We sacrifice our marriages, we sacrifice our children, we sacrifice our friends, we sacrifice our physical health, our emotional health, our mental health, all while we run this track trying to pursue success. You may not be killing someone you love, but many of us, myself included, are guilty of sacrificing what matters most because we have a wrong definition of what success actually looks like. So once again, I want to propose to you that real success is found in embracing your limits and pursuing a holistic form of success. So I want to share with you somewhat briefly my story and why I am passionate about this. My story begins here. That is, don't I look cool? That is, yes, thank you. This was 13-year-old Tyler. As you can tell, I thought I was really cool. I'm, fake pulling a fire alarm. What a cool teenager. But that's when I got interested in hacking. Like most teenagers, I was not that good of a teenager. I got in trouble all the time. And I love to figure out, how can I break rules and how can I essentially cause more mayhem and chaos anywhere that I was at, anywhere I lived. I grew up in rural Minnesota. I don't have the Minnesota accent because I was southern Minnesota, but I grew up in rural Minnesota. There wasn't such a thing as ethical hacking. Hacking was just hey, you're going to go to jail, prison if you hack stuff. Well, me and my friend, we heard about something called hackthisite.org. And I'm actually curious, has anyone ever used Hack This Site? Some OGs. All right, we got OGs in this place. I love it. My notes will turn. There we go. But it's actually still around today. This is not an advertisement for them, but if you go to hackthisite.org, before there was Try Hack Me, before there was Hack the Box, before there was even Hack Smarter, believe it or not, there was hackthisite.org. And it was founded by a guy named Jeremy Hammond, no relation to John Hammond. They're quite different. Does anyone know who Jeremy Hammond is? See, anyone who knows hacker culture? All right, well, one person. Sweet, I'll educate the rest of you. Jeremy Hammond was one of the leaders of Anonymous in 2012. Have you heard of LulzSec at least? LulzSec? Okay, cool. Jeremy was a member of LulzSec. And when not everyone, but a lot of them got arrested, Jeremy went to prison. He actually recently got out. And if you were at DEF CON this past year, he got kicked out of DEF CON for yelling something at the main stage. But he's OG hacker culture is Jeremy Hammond. Before all of that, he founded hackthisite.org to teach people how to hack. If you go to it now and you look at their rules and policies, they say we only teach ethical hacking, but they define ethical hacking as, hey, if your government is oppressing you or something's going wrong, just hack them. That's ethical. That's their definition, not for me. That's their definition of ethical hacking. But that's the community I got started with. Now, most 13-year-olds are maybe pulling all-nighters to play video games. Me and my friend Nate, we would stay up all night, and we would just do the challenges and then the missions. The missions were realistic hacking challenges on the website. I remember we used to talk, I think it was MSN Messenger. Anyone remember MSN? Like you had AOL, MSN, all of those. So it was MSN Messenger. I remember we'd stay up most of the night just talking back and forth as we worked on challenges. Well, as most 13-year-olds, I didn't think very well. And so what we would do is we would learn how to hack stuff. We'd go to school the next day, and it's like a Hack the Box Pro Lab. The entire school, like, let's see what we can do. So then we would spend our time seeing what we could get into at the school. Nothing incredibly malicious, but just trying to bypass, like, hey, you can't launch command prompt. What if we open up Notepad and save it, and then we can launch command prompt? Like little things like that. Nothing incredibly malicious, but a curiosity that I wanted to break stuff and see what would happen. Well, it wasn't applauded by my teachers. Like, look at these well-behaved young men learning how to hack stuff. We got banned from using computers. So we were pulled into the office with the superintendent and the school resource officer. So the police officer, and like, hey guys, you cannot touch computers anymore. And if you do, we're going to come at you with criminal charges. So for a year, we were not allowed to touch computers, which is really awkward. If you go back to that time, you didn't get a laptop, right? At school, you had the computer lab. And so if you had to make a PowerPoint, well, we couldn't touch a computer. So all my PowerPoints were freaking like poster board that I had to write on with marker in order to do my PowerPoint. But this was my introduction to hacking when I was 13. But because I grew up in rural Minnesota, I now live in rural South Dakota, so it's basically the same thing. There's no such thing as ethical hacking. Like when I tell people I hack stuff for a living, it's always a very weird conversation because they think I'm admitting that I'm a criminal, and I have to explain a little bit. No, like I do it before the real bad guys do. But I didn't see a good career for me. And what ended up happening is I got arrested for drugs and drug possession when I was 16 years old. And I'm not going to go to a lot of detail on this. A big part of my life that if you know me well, you'll know is I'm a Christian. Like faith is a huge part of my life, but I in no way want to push that on anyone here. So I'm not trying to push religion on you, just to be very clear, but it is a big part of my journey. So I was arrested when I was 16 years old and had a pretty like dramatic life transformation. And then I had a different dream, which is not something a 16-year-old would want to do, but I wanted to be a pastor out of all things. So you think, hey, I want to make a lot of money. Well, you don't choose to be a pastor. It was brutal, right? But my dream is I wanted to be a pastor. I wanted to help people. I wanted to come alongside them. I wanted them to experience some of the healthiness that I was experiencing in my life. So that was my dream. Became a 16-year-old, got arrested, don't recommend. And then I was like, hey, maybe I should stop doing drugs and start like telling people about my faith. And that was my goal in life. I actually ended up getting a article about me in the local newspaper. If you do some OSINT, my OPSEC like doesn't exist. So if you Google my name, you can find out everything about me for good or for bad. But you can go find this story out online right now. Here's a fun OSINT challenge. But it's a story the newspaper did about the young evangelist is what I was called. As you can tell, I also rap sometimes. So like I used to travel around a little bit and perform and do things of that nature. But there's a story about me after I got arrested. But I was interested in becoming a pastor. And because of that, my early 20s, unlike many people, were spent just working a bunch of different jobs because I had no money, and I got married when I was 19 and had kids young as well. So super broke, but still had this goal and what I thought was my calling to become a pastor. I ended up planting a church, which if you don't know what that means, most of you probably don't. It just means I started a church kind of from scratch, me and my wife, and we gathered people together. That's me as Pastor Tyler. You can see I didn't really dress up back then either. But our church plan attracted a lot of people who had some really dark issues. I made about $30,000 a year to be on call 24/7. And I walked people through addiction, suicide, marriages falling apart. I mean, you name some of the darkest moments in people's lives, and I walked with them through it. It was exhausting. I mean, almost destroyed me. I did pastoral ministry for 10 years. On top of that, I always had other jobs I was doing on the side because even though I live in rural South Dakota, $30,000 still isn't that much money to provide for a family of four. So I always did random IT jobs on the side. I spent some time as I was a community instructor for senior citizens, right? So I would sit down with elderly and like teach them, here's how a mouse works. Here's how you respond to emails. And so I did all these side hustles just so I could pay the bills. But it was by far the most difficult job I had. But what I want you to hear is this was my calling. Like if you asked me when I was 18 or 25, Tyler, what are you going to do with your life? I would say I'm doing what I want to do. Like this is what I'm called to. This is my identity. This is my purpose. If I brought you to Tyler in 2019, here's me in 2019. There's my daughter. She was very young. My son wasn't even born yet. There's my wife there. But I spent 3 years and way too much money getting a master's of divinity, which most of you have no idea what that is, but it was an academic degree studying theology, philosophy, Greek, Hebrew, a bunch of stuff like that. And I began working on my doctorate because I wanted to be able to teach at an academic level as well, because once again, I made no money as a pastor, so I had to figure out a way to make some extra money. So in 2019, I was pursuing what I thought was my lifelong dream. I had the degree. I was working on my doctorate. I was actually working as a teaching assistant. So I would lecture at the graduate level on the subject of theology. I was planning a church. I was also working at a school because once again, bills need to be paid. I didn't make that much money, but I was doing what I really felt was my calling. But something happened in 2020 that you all probably experienced called COVID-19. Yeah, I just felt like, oh, this again. I know. I'm just curious, by a show of hands, how many of you changed careers during COVID-19, like during that period? Okay, quite a few people. I'm not the only one. There you go. And remote, yeah, and you went remote. The world changed a lot. But when COVID-19 happened, I remember I first started hearing about this little disease called COVID. And I remember reading about it on Reddit and seeing about it on the news. But like most things, I just kind of assumed that's going to affect someone else. Like I'm here in the US, nothing's going to affect me. And yet I remember, we all probably remember that moment in the spring of 2020 when like everything shut down. I remember when they canceled the schools, like schools shut down. I'm curious because I don't know if this is just my community. In my community, they even closed the playgrounds, which I didn't even know was possible. That they closed in your, okay. So I'm not the only one. I remember I told my daughter, like, let's go to a playground, like, let's spend some time outside. And they literally roped it off with like yellow tape. And I was like, I didn't know that you could close a playground or that COVID was going to like jump off a slide and attack me, but you couldn't go to playgrounds. You couldn't do much. Like that was the COVID-19 experience. Well, you have to remember, I am a pastor, and part of being a pastor is like an in-person gathering of people. The offering, you know, that stuff's kind of important if that's how you make your livelihood. So COVID-19 happened. We switched to online stuff, which is where I honestly got good at talking to a camera and trying not to act awkward when I'm talking to the camera, but I did that for a while. Then we went to outdoor services in the summer, but I live in South Dakota, okay? It gets really freaking cold in South Dakota, like -20, and then you add wind chill, you walk outside, you die. You slowly, not slowly, you quickly die if you've ever been to South Dakota in the winter. It's brutal, right? So you can't have an outdoor church service in a blizzard. It's not, yeah, you're gonna meet Jesus sooner than you were expecting if you do that. But we moved indoors, and I asked people, hey, like, can you please wear a mask when you come to church? Which I don't know what community you're from. For most communities, not a big deal. South Dakota, you don't tell people what to do, all right? I learned that the hard way. People got completely pissed because I asked them to put a mask on their face, and the church shrunk by more than 50%, and it was already a small church. And I was like deeply hurt. I mean, once again, I spent 10 years building this thing from the ground up, walking people through the darkest moments of their life. And I just said, hey, can you put a mask on when you come? And that broke everything. I still don't know why. I don't recommend visiting South Dakota. It's an interesting place, but we have some unique characteristics in South Dakota. But it was one of the darkest seasons of my life to see everything that I was building essentially fall apart. I became extremely angry with people, honestly, extremely angry with faith, with the church in general, almost walked away from all of it because I was so deeply frustrated and deeply hurt with people. I ended up realizing I need to pay my bills still. So I need some way to provide for my family. I always did this IT thing on the side. So I thought, hey, maybe I can try to like do IT full time and the church full time and, you know, try not to destroy myself in the process. So that was my original plan. I got my first full-time IT job at a company you've never heard of called Interstates, based out of Sioux Falls, a bigger city where I live, but it was an on-site job. So I started working IT from about 8 a.m. It was 7:30 in the morning to 5 p.m. on site. It was about a 30-mile drive from my house, while pastoring full time, still preaching and teaching every single weekend, meeting with people in the evenings. And I realized, hey, I have a master's of divinity, but when I say that, people have no idea what I'm talking about. So maybe I should get a different degree. So it was also during this time I went back to school at WGU to get my bachelor's in cyber, which any night owls here who have gone to WGU? Yeah, sweet. A few people. I love it. Now, if someone else said this, I would think that they were exaggerating a little bit. I wouldn't believe it, but this is actually true. For about a year, I did 2 full-time jobs and went to WGU full-time. I got my bachelor's degree in 7 months. Basically, what I did is I would work from 7:30 to 5. Any downtime I had, I work on church stuff. And then I would meet with people in the evenings. I'd put my kids to bed. And then I would work literally every single night from about 8 p.m. to 1 or 2 in the morning without break for 7 months, because once again, bills have to get paid. But here's the thing. If you do that, I began pushing back my own limitations, which on the surface, I looked like a superhero. Like, how can this guy do all of this? What they did not realize is I was slowly but surely destroying myself. I reached my breaking point. I was this close to becoming another statistic. When you read about like the pastor who does something absolutely insane and they end up on the news, like I was almost that guy. Because what I learned is hurt people hurt people. You may have heard that term before, but it's incredibly true. I was deeply hurt. Hurt people hurt other people. And I really had to wrestle, like, what was I going to do? And that might be where some of you are at today. You've been trying to break into this field of cybersecurity or get that next promotion just to provide for your family. But in the process, you're like barely hanging on. You're incredibly burnt out and you're struggling with your own identity. Maybe not those of you here in person because you guys all have it figured out, but maybe those online because they're not here. Like they're in that place. But it's a place many of us come to. If you're not there now, I promise there will come a day where you are mentally and emotionally exhausted and burnt out. There's a decision I made in this season that is one of the best decisions I've ever made. Number one, I finally had health insurance, which was amazing. All right, as a pastor, no money, no health insurance. Guys, we were so broke that my kids were covered under CHIP, like the government health insurance in South Dakota. And if you know South Dakota, they don't generally like to help that many people. So like you have to be really broke to get health insurance with them. So my kids had health insurance with the government. I had nothing. But hey, I had a full-time job in IT. I actually had health insurance. Amazing. And my health insurance paid for therapy. So if you ignore everything else I have to say, remember this. Therapy is for you. Therapy is incredibly important. You do therapy not when your life is falling apart, but before your life falls apart. The same way that you get an oil change on your car, you should be doing regular maintenance on your own body, your own soul, your own mind through professional therapy. But it was during the season that I began going through professional therapy, one of the best decisions I've ever made. And the therapist really helped me identify one massive error that I was making in my life. And I have a feeling many of you are making the same error in your own life. But the therapist pointed out to me that I was finding my identity in what I was doing rather than the person I was becoming. You see, for 10 years, I was Pastor Tyler. And in a rural community like South Dakota, I don't know why it's this way, but people wouldn't even call me by name. They just say pastor, which I always thought was weird. I don't go to like a McDonald's worker and just refer to that McDonald's worker when they're not working, but I was just pastor. So my job became my identity. And from the time when I was 16 years old up until I was 28 years old, like this was my calling. This was my job. This is what I was called to do. But what I did not realize is my entire identity, who I was as a person, revolved around this title of pastor. And it was destroying me as a result. So if I can give you a tweetable thing, if you want to write this down or just memorize it, I didn't make this up. It's super cliche, but it's really important. At the end of the day, we are human beings, not human doings. Cheesy, but think about it. We are human beings, not human doings. Real success is not found in the title you hold, the salary you make, the certifications you have after your name, the platforms you started. Real success is found in the type of person that you are becoming. And I just gave you guys what I spent a bunch of money in therapy to learn about myself. If we go back to the ancient city of Carthage, They sacrificed what mattered most on an altar for financial stability. I did the exact same thing. I sacrificed what mattered the most on an altar to the gods of success and the gods of cybersecurity. I saw the big YouTubers and I thought, like, I'm never going to be John Hammond. Like, maybe Jeremy Hammond, I could end up in prison, but not John Hammond. Like, that's probably going to get like swatted now by freaking Anonymous, but not John Hammond, right? But I did everything I could, and in the process, I began destroying myself. But now we're 5 years later from when I had this therapy conversation, and like, this is honestly insane, guys. Like, I'm in South Carolina 5 years later speaking to all of you about emotional health. Like, I did not see this on my bingo chart when I was having basically a life crisis, when everything was falling apart during COVID and I was working all these different jobs to provide for my family. So 5 years later, I am here somehow in South Carolina. I am now the founder of 2 companies. And here's the crazier thing. I'm not sharing this to like brag and boast, but perspective. For the month of October, I made more money in October than I used to make in 12 months when I was a pastor, which is insane. I've never like changed what I do. Like, I live in the same house, same standard of living. I just throw that money away for when the next COVID happens and maybe I won't panic as much. But here's the thing. I never pursued money. I never pursued wealth. I never pursued success in that way, at least once I got done with therapy. Instead, I refocused what I was pursuing, and that's what allowed me to be successful in the eyes of other people. So I want to give you 2 applications. At the end of the day, you just listen to me talk about Carthage and you're like, hey, I went to a conference and learned about child sacrifice. Freaking amazing. How does it apply? Well, I want to give you two things to think about, 2 applications to your own life. Number 1, you need to redefine success for you. Do not allow success to be defined by some silly LinkedIn post. Do not allow success to be defined by some YouTube influencer. You need to redefine success for you. And for some of you, that might actually mean leaving this industry. The hardest decision I made was stop being a pastor. I probably will never go back to it. It was incredibly difficult, but it was my core identity. But for my own health, I had to leave that completely and essentially start from scratch and kind of rebuild whatever my life looks like today. For you, if you're at a spot where you are completely burnt out, you are completely broken, it might mean taking some steps away from this industry and getting to the field and learning what does success look like for you. I can't answer that for you. Success for me looks like being present to my wife and my kids. Success to me looks like, hey, I will take a much smaller salary if it means I'm not traveling everywhere. I rarely travel because I much prefer to be home. I also live in South Dakota, so everything's a connecting flight and it sucks. But I like being home and hanging out with my kids and hanging out with my wife. So success for me looks like being present. It doesn't look like a big house. It doesn't look like a fancy car. It doesn't look like speaking at a conference. It's crazy, once again, that I'm here, but this is not success for me. Success is when I go home after this, my kids actually want to spend time with me. Like, I'm not sitting there staring at my phone trying to respond to the latest LinkedIn message or YouTube video, blah, blah. Success is disconnecting and being present to them, not having a certain salary, having a certain title, or getting a certain amount of respect in the industry. I can't define. Thank you, Jesse. I'm passing an offering after this. We're revitalizing. But I cannot answer that for you. So for you, you need to sit down seriously or maybe in therapy and ask yourself, what does success look like for me in this moment and this season of life with these responsibilities? And number 2, your career is a marathon, not a sprint. Now, has anyone ran a marathon before? Okay, cool. I haven't. So, sweet. I box. That's one thing I do is box. I love that form of exercise. I never ran a marathon. So this is the one spot I was like, okay, GPT, AI overlords. I've never ran a marathon. I know how to sprint. I don't know how to do the marathon thing. Can you tell me the difference between the 2 of them? Now, we have to imagine if you begin your career, let's say in your 20s, you have about 55 years of work before you're at a retirement age. And who knows, you might work longer than that. Good luck for all of us. But your career is going to be a marathon, not a sprint. So when I asked the AI overlords, what is the difference? It gave me this nice little table. All right? So I want you to think of this in light of your career, though. So our primary goal in a marathon is sustained effort and endurance over a long distance. That is the goal of your career. Do not get your degree in 7 months while working 2 full-time jobs. I got lucky somehow, but I don't recommend it. I was sprinting, not realizing this is not sustainable. A sprint, explosive speed and power over a very short distance. You look amazing, but it doesn't pan out. This is why so many people start a YouTube channel and they make videos for 3 months and realize, oh, wow, this is actually kind of hard, right? You can sprint for 3 months. It's not sustainable. Energy system. A marathon relies on the aerobic system using oxygen for long, steady energy production. Long and steady. That should be your goal for your career. Whereas a sprint relies on whatever that word is. I don't know how to say it. Anyone know how to say that? Anaerobic? Am I saying it right? I was going to look it up before I talked, but I forgot. But it relies on that system without oxygen for short bursts of high intensity effort. It may be possible at times in your career to do that, but if you spend your career doing that, you will not last. You will destroy yourself in the process. And we have some muscle fibers. Marathon develops slow twitch muscle fibers, which are efficient and resistant to fatigue. You will have seasons of life that are exhausting. Anyone ever had a newborn before? All right? It sucks. You don't sleep. They cry and they don't stop crying, right? There are times when you're going to be exhausted in your personal life. And if you have not developed this, you will give in to fatigue and you're going to make some terrible decisions. A sprint is you develop fast twitch muscle fibers, quick explosive power, but there's the key: fatigue rapidly. Now, I didn't tell the AI overlords, hey, I'm giving this talk. I just said, tell me the difference. But I thought it was amazing how good of a parallel that is for our careers between a marathon and a sprint. But there's one thing. There's one thing the AI overlords forgot, which I would argue is more important than all of this. If you've ever ran a marathon, which once again, I haven't, but if you ran a marathon, I would guess if I asked you, hey, what made the marathon possible? You would point to people in your life. You would point to your family or your friends who encouraged you. You would point to people that when you were training and you told yourself, I cannot do this, they said, yes, you can. And they believed in you. They encouraged you. They walked alongside of you in the marathon. Well, friends, you cannot be successful in your life or in your career without a community of people around you. And I mean beyond Discord. Discord is helpful, but real people, genuine friendships. I'm not just talking networking. I think networking is important, but when it comes to networking, I think a lot of people view networking as, hey, I'm going to talk to Pat to try to get a job, right? I don't mean that. I mean building genuine, real friendships with people so that when your life falls apart, when you're going through a season of depression or darkness, you have people who will walk with you through it, who will hold you accountable, who will encourage you in those deep and dark moments of your life. And we are at Simply CyberCon, which what better place to find a community of people who can help hold you accountable. And I also want to let you know that if you're new to the field or new to this community, if this is one of the first conferences you've attended, I guarantee that the little bit of fatigue, exhaustion, burnout that you might be feeling right now, so are the people around you. And for us to succeed in this, we need one another. We need to encourage one another. We need to walk together. We need to redefine what success actually looks like in our lives. But that is everything I have. I wanted to do a Q&A. I know this totally wasn't a technical conversation, but if anyone has questions about career, cybersecurity, pen testing, life, maybe not theology, we can do that on a live stream sometime, but if you have questions, I would love to do my best to answer them. Otherwise, I'll give you 10 minutes back. Yeah, go ahead.
How do you do your time management? Do you have a paper calendar or diary? Do you use a digital product?
Yeah.
You just let chaos reign? How do you do your time management?
Yeah, so one addiction I haven't given up is caffeine, so that helps. I have way too much caffeine. But for time management, it's incredibly important. I use just a Google Calendar, but I'm also incredibly strict to time. So for me, I can't speak for other people. For me, because I have young kids, I said it before, they're 9 and 6 now. They're only young for a while, right? In a few years, I'm not going to be cool anymore, at least to them. I still think I'm pretty cool, right? Their friends can't rap, so I'm still cooler than all their friends. But I'm not going to be cool very long to them. So I want to make sure, especially at the age they're at now, I build that bond, build that connection. So when I get off work at 5 o'clock is when I generally work towards. I try to fully disconnect from everything to hang out and be present to them. I'm often back online in the evenings now working on my own projects or streaming, but I only do that after I put them to bed, and then my wife goes to bed early, so then I stay up late. That's how I do most of my time management, for good or for bad. The reason I'm even hesitant to share that, though, is all of us have different, I think, energy levels. Like what works for me, I'm naturally high energy. So what works for me, I don't want you to compare your life to me and think, well, shoot, I'm not working at night after I put my kids to bed. I must be a failure. No, no, no. Like it's what works for me. You have to find what works for you. And then like as far as meetings and such go, if it's not on my calendar, I'm not going to show up, right? So I just had to be very strict about following a calendar. Even then, I get to points where I begin to overwhelm myself, and I have to slowly step back. I think a lot of it is it's not really work-life balance. It's more work-life rhythm. Different seasons of life, you have a different rhythm to it. But at the end of the day, you're either going to cheat your family or cheat your career. And I think if you have a family, always cheat your career, right? Your job, the moment you don't meet their bottom line, what are they going to do? Lay you off. I mean, you look in the news, the big CEOs say, hey, AI is taking over. No, your stocks just suck. So now you laid a bunch of people off in order to increase your stocks. Like you're not important to your job. So do not sacrifice what matters most to a CEO you're never going to see, who's going to cut you the moment that it matters to them, right? Cheat them, focus on your family, focus on your health. Don't focus on your career. Your career stuff will follow. If you're emotionally healthy as a person, I think you'll experience career success. If you're not emotionally healthy as a person, you can pursue success all you want. It's not going to work out for you.
So I see that you use AI for some things. Has that helped with your work-life balance in regards to some of the tasks that you do on both sides?
Yeah, it's been huge, especially with founding essentially two companies, right? I mainly use AI for a lot of review of documentation, in particular, like some of those tasks to automate. But if I didn't have AI, I don't think I could run Kairos I can hack smarter. Like it's integral to a lot of my workflow in those things. So maybe I'll do a pop-up workshop on some of the specific use cases of AI, but absolutely, I use it. I don't think AI is going to also replace people fully, but it does augment people for good or for bad.
I was comment on that.
Yeah.
So, yeah, you were talking about the big 3 or 4 that, so my company's stock was doing good and they laid off 10,000.
Brutal, dude.
Brutal, yeah.
That sucks.
A lot of it was in the infrastructure, and the infrastructure, there's a lot of automation that was already there, and then if you can have AI take it over, so it just eliminated a lot of text that just
Yeah.
So I, sort of understood. I was glad I wasn't one of them, but
yeah.
But yeah, so
that's brutal.
But I think that in regards to myself and your confirmation of that, AI can help you with a lot of different tasks that were manual that take a long time to do. That if you put the right information, AI will do it for you faster, and it will look it up, like research things like that.
Yeah.
AI is on.
Yeah, spot on. And
I can see where you're.
On the layoff thing, I posted this on LinkedIn a while ago, but I mean it. If anyone has been laid off, like if you're laid off right now or laid off recently, I'll give you full access to Hack Smarter. We have like infrastructure labs and everything, no cost to you. So if you've been laid off, just talk to me. Yeah. If you've been laid off, just talk to me and you can have full access. Mr. Jesse. Oh yeah, I actually sleep pretty well. I'm not one of those, like I think I was talking to Joey. He's like, I sleep like 3 hours a night and I'm fine. I'm not as superhero as him. I get like 7 to 8 hours of sleep. So normal sleep for me, what we need to recognize, or what I need to recognize, is that you have a body, right? Whether you believe it or not, you have a body. And if you don't treat your body well, it's not going to treat your mind well. It's not going to treat your emotional health well. So another good thing, therapy, sleep, and exercise. You'd be amazed if you practice those 3 things, how much better your life is. I'd say eat right, but I suck at eating right. So I'd be a hypocrite to say that. But I do sleep and exercise and those things. But my diet's terrible, as people know who hung out with me yesterday. We're almost at end of time. We have time for maybe one more question if anyone has one. Otherwise, I'll be here all day. Happy to talk to anyone, chat with anyone.
I know you just started your new company, but is there anything, like for someone that's thinking about starting their own company, even if it's like a side gig consultancy,
Yeah.
not like a main career, is there anything you would do different, or is there any like lesson or tip or pitfall to be avoided that you could pass on?
Yeah, so I'm sure I'm making a bunch of mistakes right now, and I could tell you in a year all the mistakes I made. I'll say I don't know if this is really a mistake, but I say it's a huge challenge, and that is balancing like meetings alongside of work. So my work is very technical. If we do a pen test, I'm the pen tester. I don't know if you guys are this way, but if I'm doing something technical and then it's interrupted by a meeting, it takes me like another hour just to get back to where I was at, and clients are paying a lot of money for that. And so I've had to get really used to disappointing people and telling them no. I had a pen test a few weeks ago. It was an 8-day engagement, and I had a bunch of meetings scheduled for those 2 weeks that I was doing it, and I canceled all of them and just told them like, hey guys, I have client work coming up. I can't do these meetings. And that's been helpful for me, but just being willing to say no and disappoint people is one of the best decisions you can make, not just as a business owner, but as an individual. You have to say no to good things so you can say yes to the best things. Whatever success looks like for you, that's where it comes back in. You need to be able to define what success looks like so you can say no to the things that look good on the surface, but at the end of the day, aren't leading towards whatever health looks like in your life or your family. Question. All right, cool. Well, we are at time. Hey, thank you. Appreciate it.